Hey, what's up? Chris Sider here. Today we're going to be talking about when to know if you should fight for your ex. Now, like always, before I get started talking about the content of this video, I want to give you an opportunity to figure out what kind of chance you have of getting your ex back. In my opinion, that's the most important question that you need to get answered right as you're starting this process. So if you're interested in learning if you have a chance of getting your ex back, I would highly recommend that you stop by our website and take our free Ex Recovery Chances quiz. It's a simple 2-minute quiz. All you have to do if you want to take it is simply look in the description link of the video below. Click on the link. It's going to take you to a page that's going to ask you a bunch of questions about you, your ex, your time together. And then based on how you answer those questions, we're going to run them through our advanced algorithm, and it's going to spit out a score so that you kind of know where you stand with your ex. So again, if you want to take that quiz, all you have to do is simply look in the description link below this YouTube video, click on the link, and we will get you taken care of. Okay, let's talk about if you should fight for your ex.
Today we're going to be talking about should you fight for your ex? Should you be trying to get them back? And I thought probably the best way to answer this question wasn't so much to talk about, what you can potentially do and teach you the whole process of how you should get your ex back and hope, that is enough for you to go forward and try to do this. Instead, I thought I'd take the opposite approach. I thought I'd show you some of the things that you need to consider before you actually make this time commitment. So you can basically determine if this is worth your time or not. So the first thing I want to talk to you about is actually this idea of a crossroads. Because right now, in my opinion, you're at a crossroads. Especially if you clicked on this video, you're reading an article, the companion article that I wrote for this particular video, which again, you can find in the link. You can find the link to the companion article to this video in the YouTube description below. But you're kind of at a crossroads. You're trying to figure out if you should attempt to fight for your ex or simply give up on your ex. And whatever you choose to decide is going to drastically change your future, right? So you want to make a smart, informed decision. And I've got 4 things I want to talk to you about that isn't so much taking the sides on if you should attempt to fight for your ex or give up on your ex, but telling you some of the self-evident truths that I've learned over my 6.5, almost 7 years now doing this and teaching people to get back with their exes and seeing people succeed and people fail so that you actually know you're making a worthy time commitment. So the first thing I always recommend for everything to do is figure out if you even have a chance. Time is the most valuable currency that we have. It's one of those things that when you give it up, you cannot get it back. Sure, you can spend money on something, but there's always a way to earn more money, right? But when you spend your time on something, you never get more time back. It's the one thing that you can give up and never get back. So you want to make sure that you're using your time wisely. And what I've done over the years is one of the biggest questions I get asked is, Chris, do I even have a chance of getting my ex back? I mean, the worst thing you could do is just waste your time on something that has no chance. Luckily, what I've done is put together a special quiz designed to answer this exact question for you. This quiz is super easy to take. It's about 2 minutes long. All you have to do is simply pause this video. I know that maybe that's like a little jarring for you to pause a video and then have to go somewhere else to take this quiz only to come back and rewatch this video. But I think it's well worth your time because I put a lot of thought and effort into this quiz. So this quiz, again, if you're interested in taking it, all you have to do is simply look into the description link below this YouTube video. I have mentioned this at the start of this video, but I'm kind of reiterating it here because this can actually answer the question of if this is worth your time or not. So what it'll do is once you click on the link in the description, it's going to take you to a page that will ask you a bunch of questions about you, your ex, your time, and your relationship together. And then based on how you answer, we're going to give you a score. And the score is going to really help you determine if this is a worthy thing to do, a worthy endeavor for your time. But even if you score low, there is hope because typically, if you score low, it just means some of the other things on this list can really help you. So that is the first thing I always recommend for everyone to do. After that, the other thing I would ask you is figure out what specific things have a low chance of succeeding. What specific situations, if you will, what has to happen to basically make your situation not so promising, right? And I'd like to start off by actually saying that, the founding fathers, I live in the United States, so I know if anyone's not from the United States, this analogy might be a little lost on them, but the founding fathers, when they created the Constitution, they put a lie in there. They did. And they knew it was a lie, even if none of them admitted it out loud. Now, what is that lie? Well, that lie is all men are created equal. It's a lie. By birth, no one is created equal. Everyone has different genes, different genetics. Some people win the genetic lottery. Some people don't. That's a fact. You cannot dispute that. Also consider the fact that, hey, where are women in this? Was women included in their definition of all men are created equal? At this time, women could not vote. So by their definition of all men being created equal, they're excluding women, which is half the population. Also consider the pesky thing of slaves back in the day. Almost all of the men in this picture owned slaves. And they decided that a slave wasn't worth a person, even if it was a man. A man, black slave was not worth one person. He was worth 3/4 of a person. So even they, were hypocrites. All men aren't created equal. Now, this may seem like a weird analogy, and it may seem like I'm preaching, and I may be angering a few people, but I'm doing it to show you that equality isn't, it doesn't extend to all areas of life, especially when it comes to relationships. Two situations aren't created equal, right? Someone who's cheated on their ex is going to have a harder time of getting that ex back than someone who hasn't cheated on their ex. Now, a few weeks ago, I actually did a video where I was talking about some of the behaviors or some of the things that sort of I find that will indicate that your ex isn't going to be coming back to you. I found 5 behaviors, and I actually did a video on this where I really took each of those behaviors and did an in-depth look on them. Now, if you're interested in watching that video, again, all you got to do is simply look in the description link of this YouTube video. I hook you up with all sorts of cool things there. But I'd like to talk a little bit about those 5 things, because these are the 5 problem areas that you really want to avoid. Number 1 is your ex has been dating someone new for over 6 months. A lot of people have debates on how long a rebound's supposed to last. And I find that if your ex has been with someone new for over 6 months, that starts to become less likely that that person is a rebound relationship and more likely that that person is a authentic, real relationship. The second behavior I'd have you look at is the fact that you can't get a conversation started at all. You try to talk to your ex and they just avoid you like the plague. Now, there's some things that you can do to affect this. So again, I want to say that if you find yourself in a situation where you can't get a conversation started with your ex at all, don't think it's the end of the world, because sometimes a lot of your problems revolve around the text messages that you're sending or your failure to understand that your ex doesn't really care about you. They care about them, and working that into your text messages. So don't panic if you find yourself in these particular situations. All it just means is that you need to peel back a few more layers and fully understand what I'm talking about here. The third thing is your conversations consistently lack substance. It's not always about quantity. It's also about quality, right? If you're getting one-word responses or one-word answers from your ex in your text messages, it's not a good sign typically. The fourth one should be a no-brainer. Your ex is getting married. I don't think I really have to say much about that. And the fifth one is that it's been longer than 8 months since the breakup. Contrary to popular belief, there is a time window on typically how long it will take to get your ex back. 8 months, if you're extending it that long, tends to get a little tricky, right? So that's the second thing I'd like you to look at. The third thing is the fact if you have used our strategies before. That can be problematic. A lot of people like to lie to you and tell you that whenever you fail at this, whenever you try something like the no contact rule, for example, and you fail, you break it, you contact your ex, that it's okay. And in a way, it's not the end of the world, but it does hurt your overall chances. Man, I keep coughing today. It does hurt your overall chances. See, human beings, we're experts at recognizing patterns. So if we figure out a pattern, it's less effective for us. And probably the perfect analogy I can give you here is me. If you didn't know, in high school, I was actually quite a very good baseball player. Specifically, I was a great pitcher. I actually pitched a perfect game and struck out every single batter I faced. Now, how? Well, see, when you pitch, there's something called the strike zone, right? The strike zone typically is from there's debates about the bottom of the knee or the top of the knee to the letters on your shirt. And the challenging thing is, a shorter batter will have a shorter strike zone. A taller batter should have a taller strike zone. Umpires often screw this up. But the important thing is when you're learning to pitch, you never want to establish a pattern. And this is how I was able to pitch a perfect game. I never established a pattern. So, for example, the worst thing you could do is throw 3 pitches in the same area or close to the same area. Now, why is this? Well, 1 pitch in the same area isn't enough to indicate a pattern. 2 pitches could simply be coincidence. 3 pitches, pattern. And around 3 pitches in the same exact area is where batters can start to zone in on you. So, here's how I pitched my perfect game. You see, there's 2 important aspects when it comes to pitching. And I promise this, if this sounds like a weird sort of tangent I'm going on here, it's not. There is a method to this madness. It will relate to X's, I promise you. Just bear with me. So the 2 most important aspects for pitching is location and speed, right? So those are your 2 weapons, if you will, right? So notice how I would potentially pitch a batter, right? I'd throw a fastball. That's the fastest pitch. That would be the first pitch. And I would throw that on the inside corner, right? And the whole point there is just to simply get a strike, right? The second pitch I'd throw was a curveball. Now I do this for 2 reasons. Number 1, I want to change the speed. So the batter, number 1, can't establish a pattern of another fastball coming so that the speed is the same and they can time it. No, I want to throw a curveball, and I also want to change the location to get the second strike and also change the speed, so it kind of messes with them. Now, the third pitch, I'm going to throw a fastball again, but I'm not establishing a pattern because I'm changing the location. I'm throwing it high so that I move their eyes high, right? And then the fourth pitch, I throw a slider. This is the strikeout. This is the ultimate sort of speed, location, spin, everything to get the strikeout. Notice how it's not even a strike, but when you have 2 strikes on the hitter, they have to defend the plate. There's no pattern. There's no discernible pattern for the pitcher, or for the batter, rather. Now, that's an important thing for you to remember, because if you, for example, have tried our strategies out before, even if they haven't worked and your ex is used to you creating a pattern, like in pitching, it's not going to be effective. So what you need to understand is before you start this process is read up on our website, which again, you can simply look in the description link to find our website. Read up and learn about the strategies that I teach. Right. The strategies I teach are meant to not create a pattern. It's always meant to keep your ex guessing and keep you mysterious and keep things exciting. But if you've used some of these strategies before and you've gotten into a pattern, you're probably not going to have an easy time getting your ex back, and it probably might not be worth the time for you to try to fight for your ex. All right, so let's move on to the final thing, and that's something I like to call the self-fulfilling wheel. Now, what is this? Well, I noticed kind of an eerie, bad statistic. Around half of the success stories that I've helped over the years through my coaching practice or just simply through my website and my articles or these YouTube videos, around half of the people that end up getting back with their exes end up breaking up again within the first 3 months. Now, why is this? Well, I think this is because of something I've coined the self-fulfilling wheel. Here's what it looks like, right? The first thing that happens is you go through a breakup. Now, that pain, that heartache often will inspire you to want to get your ex back. When you become inspired to want to get your ex back, you start looking online for ideas. That's when you actually stumble across my strategies. When you actually implement my strategies or my tactics or anything, you start to notice they begin to work. And slowly but surely, as they begin to work, your ex starts to warm up to you until eventually they come back. Now, when you get back with someone, there's always an initial excitement period. This is very similar to the honeymoon period. It's just not quite as perfect as the honeymoon period. Nevertheless, it's kind of like a mini honeymoon period you go through, but the same problems that plagued you the first time that you broke up are still existing in the relationship. And ultimately what happens is you go through a breakup and the wheel repeats and turns and turns. Now the problem is you do not want to get stuck on this self-fulfilling wheel. You don't want to do another rotation of the wheel. You have to find a way to get it off its track. You have to find a way to break the wheel. Find a way to ensure that the same problems that plagued your first relationship aren't going to plague your second relationship. Now, this requires you to get your ex involved and to communicate properly and do things of that nature. But if you're honest with yourself deep down, you're thinking, I really like this idea of this wheel. This totally makes sense to me. I'm pretty sure there's nothing I can do to solve the problems in our first relationship. I'm pretty sure my ex can never get over the fact that I cheated on them. I'm pretty sure the fact that my ex is never going to stop being insecure. I'm pretty sure the fact that I'm never going to stop being insecure. If you honestly can say to yourself, you're not going to be able to fix some of those problems in the first relationship, there's no way that the second relationship is going to be any better. So what I would recommend for you to do is actually take some time, think about the problems that plagued your first relationship and plot them out and see if there's a way that you can combat them. Because if there is, great, you can find a way to get the wheel off its track. If you can't, then this might be the outcome that ultimately you're going to be stuck with.